The town car slid to the curb like a whisper. Out stepped Malcolm Everheart, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a navy suit that didn't wrinkle when he moved. He adjusted his cuff once, briefly, as if brushing off the world. Behind him, Serena emerged, silhouetted in the warm interior light. Black silk clung to her like liquid, her heels ticking softly on the concrete. The doorman straightened with a little too much eagerness. "Good evening, Mr. Everheart," the man said with a nervous smile. Malcolm nodded once. "Evening." They walked beneath the low awning, into the glowing vestibule of Lumiere, the restaurant that cost him 3 years of battle to build, brand, and bend into the marble-clad temple of elegance. It was now. Inside, the air hummed with low jazz, and the scent of rosemary oil drifted through the glass-paneled wine wall. Serena leaned into him, her fingers laced through his. "Aunt, you didn't have to go this far." "Sharkies, you did," Malcolm said. "Won't you only turn 45 once?" She smirked. "Don't say it like it's a eulogy." Malcolm didn't answer. He looked around. The room gleamed like a cathedral, every table candlelit, staff ghosting silently between diners in pressed black, wine sparkling in crystal stemware. At the reception stand, a young blonde woman glanced up. Tasha Delaney, crisp black blazer, flawless makeup, posture that screamed overcompensation. She smiled at them, but not the kind of smile that touched her eyes. It was the kind of smile that checked for threat. "Welcome to Lumiere," she said sweetly. "And do you have a reservation?" Malcolm stepped forward. "Everheart," he said. Tasha's eyes blinked once, too slowly. Then she tapped the screen in front of her, long fingernails clacking with soft, polite menace. "And first name?" He didn't flinch. "And Malcolm." Pause. Tap, tap, tap. She tilted her head. "I'm not seeing anything." Malcolm smiled, but his eyes didn't move. "On you will." Another tap. Her lips tightened, a practiced little pout of inconvenience. Serena stood beside him, quiet, unreadable. "I'm sorry," Tasha said. "We don't have anything under that name." The jazz played on. Malcolm just looked at her. Tasha turned the screen slightly away, fingers flitting over it like a pianist unsure of the notes. "Owen, we're completely booked this evening," she said, voice dipped in sugar. "Is it possible the reservation was made under another name?" Malcolm's tone remained neutral. "No." She blinked, slow. "Perhaps the date was entered incorrectly. I entered it myself," he said. "Last month. The 13th. 7 p.m. table 6. That made her flinch, a detail she hadn't expected, but she recovered quickly. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Everheart. I've checked twice. There's just nothing under your name." She smiled again, eyes already looking past him. A couple, white, dressed for money but trying not to show it, stepped in from the revolving door behind him. Tasha straightened.
"Evening, Mr.
Coleman," she said brightly. "Table for 4, right this way." Malcolm stepped aside mechanically. The man gave him a glance, casual, dismissive. Serena didn't look up. Her fingers rested on the clutch purse like she was holding something delicate together inside her ribs. When Tasha returned, she avoided eye contact. Understand this is frustrating," she said softly. "And I can check if anything else is opening up later tonight." "And no need," Malcolm said. I'll wait for the manager." She blinked. That wasn't what she wanted to hear. "Of course," she said. "And one moment." As Tasha moved into the back, Malcolm stood still, one hand resting lightly on the cold marble reception desk. His jaw was set, but everything about him remained composed, a statue in a room of murmurs. Across the floor, white diners drank from long-stemmed glasses. A waiter dropped a check discreetly beside a banker in a charcoal tie. Another smiled at a laughing woman with red lipstick and diamonds. Malcolm watched it all. None of them watched him back. Serena, off to the side now, slipped off her gloves and folded them gently into her coat pocket. Her eyes didn't wander, she didn't sigh. But there was a stillness in her that spoke volumes, a kind of quiet brace. Malcolm turned his head slightly, just enough to catch her profile. "Are you all right?" She nodded once. "Oh, just embarrassed," she said. "Which is impressive, considering I'm standing here in $800 shoes." He almost smiled. "We won't be standing long." They waited. The manager arrived with the calculated speed of someone who had been briefed and didn't like what he heard. Bryce Kennelly, mid-50s, tailored gray suit, fake polite smile that had been polished by 2 decades of rich clientele. His handshake was absent, but his tone tried to overcompensate. Mr. Everheart, I'm Bryce, General Manager. I understand there's been some confusion with your reservation? Malcolm turned fully toward him. No confusion. I made the reservation personally. I come here often. I know how the system works. Yes, of course, Bryce said quickly, hands up like they were calming a skittish animal. And it's just, I've double-checked, and unfortunately, we're at capacity for the evening. We don't seem to have you down. And strange, Malcolm said. And because I've had this booked for a month. Table 6. Bryce gave a small laugh, as if trying to ease tension that wasn't in the air. Well, I assure you, we take every reservation seriously, and I do apologize for the inconvenience. Malcolm didn't move. Inconvenience is when a cab's late. This is different. Bryce hesitated, then lowered his voice slightly. If you'd like, I can try to fit you in. Next week, perhaps. A bottle on the house. My card, of course. He produced a business card like it was a gift. Malcolm didn't touch it. He inhaled slowly, then let it out with precision. No, he said. Bryce's face twitched. Tasha stood a few feet behind him, pretending to organize the reservation stand, her spine rigid as glass. The silence that followed was long, tense, dignified, the kind of silence that usually precedes someone getting fired or ruined. Malcolm smiled. It wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile that made grown men sweat and board members second-guess themselves. It was the smile of someone who didn't need to argue, because the power was already his. He reached into his jacket and retrieved his phone. Give me 10 minutes, he said, mostly to Serena, though it echoed. Serena nodded quietly. Bryce opened his mouth again, but Malcolm had already walked away, slowly, casually, like a man who knew exactly where he was going, toward the back, toward the fire. And the moment the doors swung closed behind him, everything in the front of house, the air, the music, the waitstaff, shifted like a building waiting for its foundation to crack. The door swung shut behind him with a soft click that seemed to echo louder than it should have. Stainless steel surfaces gleamed in the hallway. The hum of refrigeration units buzzed faintly behind the polished silence. A pastry cart sat parked by the service corridor, untouched. Malcolm walked like a man who belonged, not one who... No sound on the tile. Two sous chefs noticed him, wide eyes, a sharp intake of breath, but neither said a word. They parted instinctively as he passed, like tide giving way to something heavier. He didn't stop until he reached the kitchen. Bright light, clatter of pans, the rhythmic shink of a knife against a board, the soundscape of mastery, discipline, control. Eli Martinez stood at the center of it all, short, stocky, black apron dusted in flour and sweat, knife in one hand, tasting spoon in the other. When he turned and saw Malcolm standing in the archway, his shoulders dropped half an inch, his entire body adjusted. He put the spoon down, took 2 steps forward. Mr. Everheart? The kitchen. Knives didn't stop moving, but slower now. More cautious. Malcolm didn't say anything at first. He stepped inside, closer to the heat, the copper pans, the scent of seared duck and thyme. And I booked table 6, Malcolm said evenly. 8 to 1 month ago, for tonight, 7 o'clock. Eli's brow furrowed. Sin, I wasn't told you were coming in tonight, sir. Sinai figured. Behind Malcolm, a dishwasher dropped a utensil. Nobody moved to pick it up. I called the line, Malcolm said. Spoke to some kid. Left the name, date, and guest count. Same process as always. I'll pull the records, Eli said immediately. And they keep a print copy on file in the office. And no need, Malcolm cut in, when they know. I'm not here to ask if it was a mistake. Eli watched him, measuring something. He nodded once. Not agreement, not understanding, just acknowledgement. Who's managing floor tonight? Malcolm asked. Bryce, Eli said. He's been front of house since 6. And the girl at reception? Kasha. Delaney. Malcolm's hand stayed calmly at his sides, but the stillness in him was dangerous, calculated, like the moment before a detonation. He looked down briefly. A smear of saffron on the tiled floor. Said the restaurant was full, he said. Offered to rebook me. Next week. Eli didn't answer. Malcolm looked up again. His eyes were sharp now, colder than anything in the fridge. You ever notice how often people like me get turned away from tables I paid to build? Eli blinked, slowly. No, sir. Malcolm smiled faintly. You're a bad liar, Eli. That's why I trust you. A beat passed. Then Malcolm stepped back toward the swinging door. And I want Tasha and Bryce standing at the host stand when I return. Do not warn them. Do not say my name. Just have them there." Eli nodded. "And Eli?" "See, sir. And not canceling the dinner. My wife's still waiting." Back in the front, the atmosphere had shifted, subtle but real. Serena stood like a black statue at the edge of white opulence, calm, gleaming, untouched but seen. A couple at a nearby table had started whispering, throwing glances in her direction. The pianist missed a note in the corner. The servers, once fluid, were stiff now, uncertain which reality to follow. Tasha was back behind the reception desk, chewing at the inside of her cheek. Bryce was beside her, scanning the tablet again, as if searching for a name that should have been there but wasn't. As if this wasn't Manhattan's most elite restaurant, where things didn't just happen. Malcolm emerged from the hallway like a quiet guillotine. No announcement, no raised voice. Tasha looked up, then froze, a single flicker of awareness behind her lashes. Her fingers pulled in toward her clipboard defensively. Bryce turned, forced a corporate smile. "Mr. Everheart, I was just speaking with my staff about the issue. I want to personally apologize again." Stop. Malcolm's voice wasn't loud, but it carved. People 2 tables over turned. "I'd like to know," Malcolm said, undecided who decided to remove my reservation from the system. Tasha blinked. I didn't remove anything. It wasn't there. One jet you had a walk-in table for the Colemans, who booked after me. I saw you seat them." "And they're regulars," Tasha said quickly. "And they're here weekly. Sometimes we hold a slot." Malcolm held up one hand. "Don't lie to me in my own house." She went silent. Bryce's throat twitched. "Sir, this might not be the best time or place." "No, Bryce," Malcolm said, eyes never leaving him. "Tintes is exactly the time, and exactly the place." A silence bloomed between them, big, ugly, exposing. "And built this restaurant," Malcolm said. "Not you, not her. I picked the marble, signed the permits, approved the font on the menus. I wrote the training manual you just ignored." He leaned in half an inch. "And if you think for 1 second I'm going to watch people like her decide who belongs at my table." He stopped. Serena was watching him now. Not alarmed, not embarrassed. Something deeper. Not rage, not pain. Clarity. Malcolm straightened. He looked past Bryce, past Tasha, toward the main dining room. "Get them out," he said flatly. Bryce blinked. "Sir?" "Her," Malcolm said. "She's done. Right now. Clean out, walk out. I'll have security escort her if needed." "And B?" Bryce asked, trying to smile. Malcolm looked at him with quiet contempt. "You're done too, but you'll finish tonight, like a ghost. Then you disappear." Tasha stammered. "And it mean, I didn't know who you were." "That's the problem," he said. And then he walked away, toward Serena, toward table 6, which was for now still empty, but no longer unavailable. He walked slowly, deliberately, as the path between the hostess stand and Serena grew shorter. The restaurant no longer hummed, it murmured. Conversations slowed, forks paused. Even the music seemed to hesitate between notes, like the pianist had caught on to something wordless in the room. Malcolm's steps weren't angry, they were methodical, practiced. He walked like a man who'd been made to wait before, and learned what it meant to walk anyway. Serena didn't speak. She stood exactly where he left her, her coat now draped over her arm, her purse clutched in one hand, the other hand free and waiting. She didn't need to ask. He reached her side. She gave him the smallest nod. "On her out," Malcolm said. She looked around once. Tasha was gone. Bryce was nowhere in sight, but people were watching now. The tables near them had shifted their chairs ever so slightly to face what they hoped was a show. Malcolm turned his head slightly toward her, his voice quiet. "Oh, go boss, they'll keep looking." Serena's lips barely moved. "Let them?" As they moved toward table 6, something in Malcolm's chest twisted, not from the moment, but from something deeper. Older. Older than this restaurant. Older than the way the senator at table 9 had glanced over, then turned away with an air of performative indifference. He remembered something he hadn't meant to. A diner. Not like this one. Plastic booths. Orange counter. 1979. His mother had dressed in her best clothes. A red coat, white gloves. He was 8. They were told at the counter that the milkshake machine was broken. But when the white family behind them ordered sundaes, the waitress smiled and said, "Coming right up." He hadn't known what it was called yet, but his mother had. He saw it in her eyes as she picked up her purse and walked him out of the restaurant with grace, with dignity, with silence. That silence had aged with him, and now it stood next to him in a black dress, watching him reclaim the room. Table 6 sat empty, a crisp white cloth perfectly ironed. 2 menus sat folded atop polished chargers. A candle flickered in a crystal globe. The place setting was untouched, and yet everything about it felt off, not because of what it was, but because of what had almost happened. Because of what nearly wasn't allowed. A young waitress stood nearby, early 20s, sharp eyes, subtle tattoos barely visible beneath her sleeves. She looked unsure whether to approach. Malcolm gave her a nod. She stepped forward. "Welcome, Mr. Everheart. Mrs. Everheart, would you like me to start with a wine menu?" Malcolm studied her for a second, then gave a tight nod. "Yes, bring the Bordeaux list." She blinked. "Of course." Serena slid into the booth like she'd always belonged there. Malcolm took his time, one slow step at a time, like he needed the room to absorb the weight of it. He sat, adjusted his cuff, lifted the cloth napkin, and laid it across his lap. "Should I expect a replacement GM to appear mid-course?" Serena asked lightly. "Oh, they'll stay away tonight," Malcolm said. "Too much shame floating in the air." They should bottle it. Make it their house vintage." That got the smallest smile out of him. "I've had this table since the beginning," he said after a moment. "Table 6. Right in the heart of the room. Best acoustics, most foot traffic. Perfect lighting after sunset. This was supposed to be the anchor of the brand. Kent still is," Serena said. Wendy just forgot who said it. As they waited, Malcolm glanced again across the room. Table 9, the Ashcrofts. Senator Douglas Ashcroft was mid-conversation with another man in a suit, his hand gesturing idly through the air as if he owned it. His wife Marlene sat still and elegant, but her eyes flicked toward Malcolm's table now and then. Not full stares, just controlled glances, like she couldn't not look. Malcolm didn't return it. He turned back to Serena. "We'll eat," he said. "We'll drink, and I'll see who else shows their face." Serena sipped water. "And after?" Malcolm didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back in the booth. The candlelight caught the corner of his ring. A platinum band, plain but heavy. "After," he said. "Inside clean house." The waitress returned with the wine list, hands slightly trembling but her voice steady. "We have a 95 Chateau Margaux," she said. "It was reserved by another table, but I've been told it's now available to you." Malcolm raised one brow. "Is that so?" She nodded. "Bring it," he said. She turned. "And thank you," Malcolm added. The words hit her like a gift. She smiled, genuine, soft, relieved, and moved off. Serena raised her glass of water. "To your restaurant," she said, voice low, "and to the system you're about to break." Malcolm looked around once more, this time slow, deliberate, eyeing the corners of the room, the walls he built, the rules they rewrote behind his back. And then he lifted his own glass and clinked it softly against hers. The Bordeaux hit the table like an offering. The young waitress placed it down carefully, label facing out, and removed the cork with a deft hand. She didn't make eye contact until after she'd poured the first taste. Malcolm sniffed it without ceremony and nodded. She filled both glasses, then slipped away like she'd just stepped off stage after nailing her one line. It wasn't even about the wine. It was the way the servers moved now, cautious, like the entire dining room had suddenly become aware of something powerful sitting dead center, and no one quite knew the rules anymore. Malcolm leaned back in his seat and looked past the candle toward the wall of windows. Out there, Manhattan burned like gold. In here, the air was getting colder. A low voice startled him. "Mr. Everheart." He turned. Chef Eli had come into the dining room, apron off, sleeves rolled to the elbow, his dark hair still damp from the kitchen heat. He didn't belong out here, not with the guests, and he knew it. But he came anyway. Malcolm nodded once, and Chef Sen wanted to apologize. "Personally," Eli said. "But what happened at the door? And you weren't the one who made that call," Malcolm said quietly. "Oh no," Eli said. "But I should have known. Should have seen it happening." A few heads turned. Table 4, Table 9, the Ashcrofts. Senator Ashcroft had paused mid-bite, fork hovering, eyes narrowing. Marlene was whispering something, not to him, but to the man seated beside her, the venture capitalist with too many rings on his fingers. Eli glanced toward them, then back at Malcolm. "You want me to handle something?" "No," Malcolm said. "Not yet." Eli gave a tight nod. Just say when. Then he left. Serena didn't speak. She didn't have to. The crack happened 30 seconds later. A server, mid-20s, nervous, trying to carry too many things at once, tripped on the edge of a rug and sent a bread plate clattering. The sound wasn't loud, but it was sharp. Everyone flinched, except Malcolm. He sipped his wine. A moment later, Bryce Kennelly reappeared, not at the table, but across the room. He was trying not to look shaken. He failed. Malcolm watched him, watched the way his eyes darted around, calculating, seeking a way to minimize fallout, to salvage power. Then Malcolm rose. Not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to send a ripple through the restaurant. He walked past table 4, where 2 young tech entrepreneurs leaned in to whisper to each other. Past table 7, where a woman in a pearl choker gave him a once-over like she was still trying to figure out what made her nervous. And then he stopped, right in front of table 9. Senator Douglas Ashcroft looked up, full eye contact now. There was a smirk behind his gaze, not warm, not hostile. Something worse. Polite dismissal. The kind that says, I see you, but you're not my equal. Douglas, Malcolm said. The senator didn't flinch. Ben Malcolm. His voice was smooth, southern inflected, a drawl he wore like a blazer. See, things got a little dramatic tonight, Ashcroft said. And you know how it is with staff. Marlene looked up, smile neutral but eyes razor thin. And you've got a hell of a team here, she said softly. Sometimes they just need guidance. Malcolm didn't answer. Instead, he reached toward their table, not roughly, not quickly, and picked up the leather-bound reservation card propped neatly on its brass stand. The name etched in fine gold print, reserved minus Ashcroft Party. Malcolm held it between 2 fingers. This was meant for table 6, he said. Ashcroft raised an eyebrow. Is that right? And is, Malcolm replied. And it was booked under my name, a month ago. Marlene's smile finally cracked, just a fraction. Ashcroft's lips pressed together. I understand mistakes happen, Malcolm said, voice still calm, still precise. But this one had a little too much intention behind it. So think we had something to do with your table? Marlene said, tone sugar-dipped and acid-laced. We didn't even know you were dining tonight. Oh, but I'd believe that, Malcolm said. Never see me. You just see inconvenience. Ashcroft folded his napkin and placed it beside his plate. His posture shifted. Still polite, still civil, but less performative now. Older, harder. Oh, Malcolm, he said, dropping the tone slightly. And you and I both know there's more going on here than just reservations. You're a businessman. You know how this works. We built this country on knowing who to serve first. Malcolm smiled, not with his mouth but with his eyes. Cold. And now I'm rebuilding it, one plate at a time. He placed the Ashcroft reservation card down on their table, right in front of their wine glasses. He won't be needing this anymore. When he turned back toward his table, the floor was silent, utterly silent. A woman at table 2 reached for her phone, then put it down again. The pianist stared at the keys without playing. A waiter in the back corner stood frozen with a dessert tray halfway lifted. Malcolm returned to his seat like he was walking off a stage. Serena had not moved. Her hands were folded, her glass untouched. Did you get what you needed? She asked. He looked down at the wine, then took a long, deep sip. Malcolm stood alone in the service hallway behind the kitchen's swinging doors. His tie was loosened, just slightly, enough to breathe, enough to let the night settle around his shoulders. He stared at the framed poster on the wall, the one every employee passed before clocking in. Lumiere, excellence, elegance, equality. He smiled, a dead, humorless smile. Then he turned and stepped into the manager's office. The office was small, windowless, aggressively beige, a space for schedules, warnings, and whispers. There were 3 people waiting for him, none of them speaking. Brandon Cooper, the head waiter, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Tall, thin, red tie slightly askew. Always did the job right. Always said the right things, especially when no one with power was watching. Marissa, the events coordinator, sat with her arms crossed. Tight, defensive. She hadn't made eye contact since he entered. Nessa Bright, the only one who didn't avoid his eyes, sat nearest the door. Young, underpaid, too smart for the place. She didn't look afraid, just angry. Malcolm didn't sit. He closed the door gently behind him. I'm going to ask one question, he said, and each of you is going to answer directly. Brandon shifted in his seat. Malcolm continued. How long has there been a quiet policy against seating black guests in the main very important person section? Silence. Marissa glanced at Brandon. Brandon looked at the carpet. Nessa raised her hand like a student. Malcolm gave her a nod. On since before I got hired, she said. Brandon's head snapped toward her. Malcolm's voice stayed calm. And you've seen it enforced? Tenchees, multiple times. Staff get told to stall certain tables, delay seating, make excuses about booking errors. It's subtle, but it's constant. Brandon cleared his throat. With respect, sir, that's not official policy. No one says those words. Malcolm turned toward him. And yet everyone knows the dance. Brandon squirmed. Sometimes it's about guest comfort. This is a high-stakes room. People, certain clients, have expectations. And clients like the Ashcrofts? Brandon swallowed. We don't take sides, he said. We try to create a neutral experience. Malcolm walked slowly toward the desk, picked up the laminated service protocol sheet, pointed to the section labeled Priority Seating Order. Explain this then, he said. Brandon shifted. Tenet standard. We seat regulars first, but you've skipped regulars who weren't white. I know because I've watched it happen. 3 times. 2 weeks ago. I stood in the bar with my coat on. No one noticed me. Brandon's lips parted. No words came. Malcolm turned to Marissa. Porsa. Oversee group bookings. Is there a list of preferred names that get flagged with extra courtesy? She didn't speak. And I've seen it, Nessa said. There's a list. Canessa, Marissa hissed. What, you're gonna lie? Tonight? Malcolm held up a hand. Bring it. Marissa hesitated, then opened the drawer, took out a leather-bound host log. Inside, a printed list tucked behind a floor plan. At the top, platinum flag clients minus do not redirect. He flipped through the names. Ashcroft, Goodman, Faulkner, R. DeWitt. No Everheart. Malcolm ran his fingers down the list like he was reading a eulogy. And know what bothers me the most? He said quietly. Not that this happened. That I built a space that let it happen without anyone blinking. Brandon straightened. Sir, I swear I didn't. Sir. Well, since you followed the room, Malcolm said. Like everyone else. Like good soldiers. He turned. Nessa. Guess? Hort, you're promoted. Marissa's eyes widened. What? Nessa runs front of house now, immediately. Interim GM until I say otherwise. Brandon stood. He can't just... Malcolm stared him down. And just did. He opened the office door. The hallway outside had gone silent. Someone, maybe Eli, had told the staff to clear the back corridor. But the tension in the walls remained. Like old mold no one scraped clean. As he stepped out, a server passed him with her head down. He paused. Natalie, he said. How long have you worked here? She stopped. 4 years, sir. In those 4 years, he said, have you ever seen someone turned away from a confirmed reservation? She paused. No, sir, she said. Not until tonight. Malcolm nodded once, and kept walking. When he returned to the dining room, Serena was standing. Not to leave, just to meet him at the edge of the booth. She could tell something had shifted, something bigger than the manager. Something structural. Then you look like someone who just found termites in his foundation, she said. Worse, he said. When the whole building's leaning. But the towel. Then now I tear it down. By the time Malcolm returned to table 6, the staff had changed. They moved like shadows now, nervous, deferential, alert. A new server stood silently with her hands folded behind her back. A backup sommelier hovered nearby like a substitute teacher trying not to trip over expectations. Malcolm sat. Serena waited until he was settled before lowering herself into her seat again, smooth and unhurried. Someone put their hand in the fire, she said softly. How bad is the burn? Pull on to loose fingers, Malcolm said. Both feel it every time they reach for something that isn't theirs. He didn't smile. He wasn't angry now. Anger had passed. What remained was execution. Cold, efficient. The wine had opened up beautifully in the decanter. Serena sipped, nodded. A course arrived, foie gras with a cherry glaze, saffron risotto curled under it like a silk pillow. Compliments of the kitchen, the server said. Voice quiet, respectful. The chef says the entire tasting menu tonight is at your discretion. Don't tell him thank you, Malcolm said. He didn't ask for substitutions. He didn't give any orders. He didn't need to. He had the floor now. At table 9, Marlene Ashcroft adjusted her shawl, shoulders rigid. Her knife scraped against her plate, too loud, too sharp. The senator was still pretending nothing had happened, but his eyes told the truth, fixed on Malcolm, narrow, unreadable. Marlene turned and glanced again towards Serena, the kind of glance a woman uses when trying to pretend she's curious, not cornered. Serena met it directly, held it, then tilted her wineglass in a small, silent toast. Marlene looked away first. 5 minutes later, the second course arrived. Scallops in blood orange butter, arranged like little pearls around a seaweed crisp. The waitress leaned close to Malcolm. She didn't mean to whisper, it just came out that way. "There is a request from Mrs. Ashcroft," she said. "She'd like a word." Malcolm didn't move. Serena set her fork down delicately. "Did she say why?" Malcolm asked. The waitress flushed. "She didn't." Malcolm didn't answer right away. He looked across the room. Marlene was still watching, a tight smile on her lips, like a woman clinging to the idea that she was still in control of the frame. He pushed his chair back, slow and smooth, the sound barely audible. "I'll give her a moment," he said. He approached table 9 like it was a witness stand. Marlene straightened, smoothing her dress. "And Malcolm," she said, tone syrupy, "I want to apologize for the earlier misunderstanding. I'm sure it was just a miscommunication." He didn't sit. He didn't smile. "It wasn't a misunderstanding," he said. "It was protocol. I just removed it." Marlene's face tensed. Ashcroft stayed silent, cutting a piece of lamb like nothing mattered. His eyes flicked up, once. "Douglas," Malcolm said. "You've been eating here for 6 years. My wine list bears your thumbprint. You even told your donors this was your spot." Ashcroft didn't flinch. "A good service, good food, and no black faces at the surrounding tables," Malcolm said. "10 was part of the appeal, wasn't it?" "Let's not politicize dinner," the senator said smoothly. "I'm not," Malcolm replied. "In privatizing it." Ashcroft raised an eyebrow. Malcolm leaned slightly toward Marlene. "Do you know what you are in this room now?" he asked quietly. She blinked. "Oh, you're not the queen anymore," he said. "You're just the guest who got outplayed." She straightened, defensive. Oh, excuse me? Say I built this kingdom? And starting tonight, the throne rotates." He turned without another word. Back at table 6, Serena had been watching the whole exchange like a theater critic waiting for the final act. When he returned and sat down again, she poured the wine herself. "Well," she said, "that's done." "Not yet," Malcolm said. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded envelope, simple cream cardstock, placed it on the edge of the table, addressed in tight script, "Douglas Ashcroft, personal." Serena eyed it. "That what I think it is?" "An business dissolution agreement," Malcolm said. "Lumiere's no longer accepting investments from men who build walls they can't see over." "And you're going to serve him?" "Oh, but he'll find it," Malcolm said. Before dessert, the restaurant moved on, but not naturally. Every breath in the room was slightly held, every conversation quieter. The ripple had touched every table, every server, every corner of the chandelier-lit theater. At table 6, Malcolm took a bite of risotto, lifted his napkin, and calmly dabbed the corner of his mouth. Serena leaned in. "You look tired. And shy feel clean." She nodded and smiled. The envelope was gone. Malcolm didn't see who took it. Didn't need to. One of the servers, likely the sommelier, had followed quiet orders, delivered it to table 9 like a side dish no one had ordered, but everyone would be forced to taste. Ashcroft hadn't moved much, but his fingers had clenched around the edge of the envelope before tucking it under his linen napkin. Noted, understood. A silent war had been declared. Malcolm rose again. This time, he didn't walk to any table. He walked to the center of the floor, between the long curved banquette and the polished wine wall, the spot where everyone could see him, even if they pretended not to, and he spoke, calmly, clearly. "Shh, may I have your attention for just a moment?" Forks paused mid-air, wine stopped pouring. A woman in the far corner held her phone but didn't lift it. No one did. Not tonight. Malcolm didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I apologize for the interruption to your evening. I know some of you came for quiet, others for power. A few of you came because you believe this is your space, a place that reflects who you are or who you want to be seen as." He scanned the room. Some didn't meet his eyes. A few, like Serena, didn't look away once. "I'm Malcolm Everheart," he continued, "founder, sole owner, and until about 90 minutes ago, the silent name behind every glass, plate, and paycheck in this room." On a few gasps, Faint, a muffled exhale from table 4. Even the pianist at the back stopped playing. Malcolm took one step forward. Tonight, a woman named Tasha Delaney denied me entry to my own restaurant. She wasn't confused. She wasn't overwhelmed. She made a decision, based on skin, assumptions, and which names make her feel safe. He let it hang. She's gone. A beat. Price Kennelly, my general manager, also upheld a system that treats certain diners as scenery and others as intrusions. A system that wasn't written down, but everyone knew. He's gone too. After tonight, you won't see him here again. No one moved. And I say this not to make a scene, but to make it clear, I am here now, not behind a corporate name, not hidden in an office. Here, on this floor. He paused. And if any guest, server, chef, or manager enforces anything even close to what happened tonight, you won't have to worry about your tips, your schedule, or your reputation. He smiled, finally. And because you won't have a job, a small gasp near the bar, he turned toward the front, where Nessa stood half hidden behind the reservation stand, arms crossed, wide-eyed, but standing tall. Nessa Bright is now acting general manager. Starting tonight, any complaints, requests, or praise go through her. A ripple went through the staff. She's 24, Malcolm added. Isha knows more about integrity than most men twice her age. Someone in the back clapped. Just once. It was Eli, chef's coat open, not smiling, just nodding. A second clap, then a third. It didn't become an ovation. It became silence, heavy, charged silence, the kind you don't forget, because it changes the shape of the room. Malcolm turned back towards Serena. She was still seated, still poised, still watching him like a man stepping into himself. He walked back slowly, sat down. The final course, a pistachio panna cotta with black cherry reduction, was already plated, but untouched. Serena raised her glass. "Oh, never raised your voice," she said. "And don't have to," Malcolm said. "Oh, and to say heard you." Pinned good. He took a bite. Let the cream dissolve on his tongue, and let the silence keep doing the work. At table 9, Senator Ashcroft unfolded the envelope. Inside, 3 pages, legalese, clean break, asset reallocation, no room left for negotiation. He read the top line again, "Ain't effective immediately. All capital interest held by Mr. Douglas Ashcroft in Everheart Dining Group is dissolved, with cause, per clause 11A. His jaw tightened. His wife reached for her pearls, but across the room, Malcolm didn't look at them again, because once a man finishes cleaning house, he doesn't go back for the dust. The panna cotta was perfect. Malcolm let the spoon rest on his tongue a moment longer than usual, savoring the bitter cherry thread running through the cream. It wasn't sweetness, it was contrast, sharp and confident, like someone had made it for the first time tonight, knowing who it was really for. He looked at Serena, who was lifting the last piece of poached pear to her lips. She ate slowly, calm. Her silence wasn't passive, it was earned. She was letting the room breathe around her, letting them sit in the moment they had created. Every sound seemed sharper now, the flick of cutlery, the hush of fabric shifting against leather chairs, the polite murmur from a table across the room, the kind that pretends not to be watching but absolutely is. Table 9 hadn't moved. Senator Ashcroft and his wife remained in place like museum exhibits, relics of a power structure that had just been dismantled over 4 courses and 3 glasses of wine. Marlene stirred her coffee with precision. Her saucer clinked. Malcolm didn't look their way. A server approached. Not the young one from earlier, this one older, mid-30s, clearly pulled from another section. His hands were steady. His smile trained. "May I clear Mr. Everheart?" Malcolm nodded. A nay. The man moved swiftly, silently, never breaking eye contact longer than necessary. As he cleared the plates, Malcolm looked up. "Have you worked here long?" "Almost 6 years, sir." "Sound you've served the Ashcrofts before?" "Yes, sir." Malcolm watched him a beat longer. "You ever feel like who you serve determines how you get treated?" The man hesitated, then nodded. "Just once." "That changes," Malcolm said. "Tonight." "Yes, sir." The man cleared the final glass, straightened, and paused. "I'd be honored to serve your table any time." Malcolm nodded. "And you'll be doing more than that soon. What's your name?" "I'm Calvin, sir." "Bye, keep going, Calvin. I'll be watching." Calvin smiled, not the trained smile, a real one. He disappeared into the kitchen. The air in the room had shifted again, not heavy anymore, but alert. Malcolm reached across the table and touched Serena's hand, not for comfort, but to anchor her in the moment with him. "You think they'll come back?" she asked softly. "Who?" "Son to Ashcrofts. The others like them." Malcolm didn't answer right away. He refilled her wine glass himself, the last of the Margot, poured slow like ceremony. "Pull try," he said. "People like that always do. They pretend not to notice change. Then one day, they show up and expect everything to be the way it was." He raised his glass. "But the table's taken." They clinked, soft, final. Far off in the corner of the restaurant, the pianist resumed. A different song now, not jazz. A slow, haunting piano waltz, simple and imperfect. Human, real. Malcolm sat back in the booth and let the weight slide off his shoulders. Not completely, never that, but enough. Enough to say, "This is mine." And now they know it. Across the room, Nessa Bright stepped behind the host stand. Her blazer too big, her shoulders too squared, but her posture unshakable. She caught Malcolm's eye. He gave a subtle nod. She returned it, with interest. Then Malcolm looked at Serena. The candlelight between them flickered. For the first time that evening, he let himself smile. Really smile. "So I think dessert's over," he said. Serena cocked an eyebrow. "So what happens now?" He rose. "Now," he said, "and I walk you out like the queen of this place, because that's what they'll remember. Not the speech, not the firings, just this image." He extended his hand. She took it. Together they crossed the floor, not rushing, not hiding. The room parted for them. Some heads turned, some didn't dare. None of them would forget. At the exit, Calvin held the door without a word. Malcolm paused beside him. "Tell Chef Eli the table's closed." "Oh, say, sir," Calvin said, permanently. Malcolm stepped into the night. Outside, the city exhaled. The night air pressed soft against Malcolm's skin, cool and heavy with the scent of exhaust, wet pavement, and something floral from the rooftop garden overhead. Serena wrapped her coat tighter around herself and leaned gently into his side. They stood in silence for a moment, just breathing. The chaos behind them had ended, but its shadow still clung to the building's facade, a marble and glass temple with a new god now standing tall at its altar. "You're not even going to look back?" Serena asked. Malcolm's eyes stayed forward. "And don't need to." She smiled. "Oh, they'll be talking about this for weeks. And tonight didn't do it for them." And oh, a sleek black town car pulled up. The driver stepped out, opened the door, nodded to Malcolm, then quietly nodded again to Serena. She slid in first. Malcolm stood at the curb a moment longer, not thinking, just letting the silence stretch. Then he turned and went back inside. The restaurant hadn't moved. It was a living diorama now, still, gleaming hollow in a different way. The staff had begun their reset for the next day. Linens removed, menus stacked, lights dimmed. Only two people remained in the dining room, Senator Douglas Ashcroft and his wife. Everyone else was gone. He stood at the far end of the room, back to Malcolm, reading the dissolution documents again. Marlene sat beside him, arms folded, the pearls at her throat looking heavier than they had before. Malcolm approached quietly. No announcement. When Ashcroft turned, he didn't blink. "'Tis isn't smart," Ashcroft said. "Uncutting ties this way." "It's not about smart," Malcolm replied. "It's about clean. He'll lose the contracts I brought in. The money, you know that." Malcolm nodded. "No." Ashcroft took a slow step forward, folding the papers carefully. We had an understanding." No," Malcolm said. You had a leash." The senator's face darkened. You'll regret this." And Malcolm gave him a long, unblinking look, then took out something from his inside coat pocket, a plain white business card. He held it between two fingers and set it down on the edge of the Ashcroft's table. One line of text in black serif font: "We are not yours to permit." Nothing else. Ashcroft looked at it, didn't touch it. Malcolm didn't wait for a reaction. He turned, walked. At the door he paused once, addressed no one in particular. "Clean it all, top to bottom, every name, every system." From somewhere behind the host stand, Nessa's voice came through. "Yes, sir." Outside, Serena waited in the car, her reflection faint in the tinted glass. When Malcolm stepped in, she didn't speak right away, just reached over, placed her hand on his. He looked out the window one last time. The golden glow of Lumiere pulsed like a lighthouse behind him, still beautiful, still untouched, but no longer neutral, no longer theirs. As the car pulled away, the last line of jazz from inside the restaurant bled faintly through the closing door. A quiet trumpet, unresolved, and behind it, silence. Not weakness, just power. Power that no longer needed to speak.